theyeshiva.net.
Okay, we're up to Kufay Amid Beis, 5 lines from the bottom. Yeah. So, the Gemara just quoted that brisa that's been quoted earlier, that somebody who comes home Motzei Shabbos, he makes a bracha on wine, which is hagafen. He makes a bracha on the fire, boiler mariyesh. He makes a bracha on psamim, makes a bracha havdalah, and drinks. And if he only has 1 cup of wine, and if he uses it for havdalah, he won't have wine to use for birchas hamazon and for benching. So what does the brisa say? We allow him to delay havdalah until after his meal, and after his meal, he's going to have a cup of wine, bench, finish benching, make hagafen, but not drink. Do boiler mariyesh, do psamim, or psamim boiler mariyesh, havdalah, and then drink the wine. So we combine together the birchas hamazon and the havdalah. That's what the brisa taught us. And Ravin explained that we do not mind doing this, even though chaviva mitzvah b'shaita. We'd like to do a mitzvah in its appropriate time, and the time of havdalah has already passed. It hasn't expired, but it passed, because the time of havdalah is Motzei Shabbos, when Shabbos leaves. But nonetheless, delaying the havdalah is not such a crime and not such a problem, despite chaviva mitzvah b'shaita, because there's something else that we want to emphasize, and that the Shabbos should not look like a burden. Comes the Gemara and says, Shma mina meha masnisa tamni. From this brisa about havdalah, we can derive 8 halachos. Tamni is 8 laws. Number 1, Shma mina, we learn from here, hamavdil b'tfilah tzarich sheyavdil ala kos. Even somebody who made havdalah in davening, in Ma'ariv of Motzei Shabbos, you already said, Ata chaynan tanu, lamada teirasecha, vatlamdeinu, lasis chukar tzeinach vatavdil, Hashem alekenu, ben kodesh l'chol, ben oy l'choshech, ben yisrael lamim, ben yoy mashvi l'sheish. You see me a right? Avinu malkeinu, hachal aleinu yamim aboyim, etc. You already made havdalah in davening. Nonetheless, the Chazal were masakin that you have to make havdalah also on a cup of wine. Why? Because the brisa said, hanichnas lebeis b'Motzei Shabbos. Somebody who came home with Motzei Shabbos. Where did he come from? Probably he came from davening, where he davened Ma'ariv and said mavdalah in davening, like most people would do. And nonetheless, we say he takes a cup of wine and makes havdalah. So we see from here, you saw it. It's not havdalah either in davening or on a cup of wine. But even if you did it in the middle of davening, the Chazal still wanted you should do it on a cup of wine.
Why do we do it? Doesn't read this way. If we're going to do it later anyway. Why do we do it if we're going to do it later anyway?
And it doesn't read this way. It's very strange. Tefillah, tzorech sheyavdil ala kos. You would think that somebody who says that tefillah in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei, you need to have a kos. And that's how it sounds. It's not logical, but that's how it reads, no?
No, hamavdil b'tefillah, nonetheless, tzorech sheyavdil later ala kos. Not in tefillah.
Second yavdil, it doesn't go on the first yavdil?
No. Tzarich sheyavdil a second time ala kos.
Why do we do it twice?
You want to know why havdalah we do twice? Why tefillah and then why again?
The ikr seems to be with the kais anyway.
Yeah. The answer to this is this has to do with a little bit of Jewish history. In Shulchan Aruch Harav, he brings the whole history in Siman Reish Tzadik Dalet, in Hilchos Shabbos. When the Anshe Knesses Hagdolah, who was the group who came back to Eretz Yisrael and rebuilt the second Beis HaMikdash and reestablished Jewish life in the Holy Land, they were the ones who instituted the Nusach of Davening, right? Shemona Esrei 3 times a day. All the brachas that we make, right, before eating or before mitzvahs. In Bayis Rishon, there were no brachas. Yeah? You put on tefillin, you didn't make a bracha. You said Kriya Shema, there was no bracha. All the brachas that we do, this was the Anshe Knesses HaGedolah. All the tefillos, Kiddush, the Nusach of Kiddush, Havdalah, basically the text of davening that we're all familiar with. So their takana was Havdalah in davening. In middle of Shemoneh Esrei Ma'ariv, you say Havdalah, not on a cup of wine. Why? So the Gemara says in Brachas Lamed Gimel, when they came up from the exile, the poverty was beyond. The poverty was so beyond, and it was impossible for the regular person to buy extra wine for Havdalah. It would have just been such a stressful endeavor. So the takana was to do Havdalah in middle of davening. Where did they put it in? In Atar Chaynin Ladam Das, like we explained, because Imein Das Havdalah Minayin. Then the economic situation improved. Jews became wealthier. So the Chachamim established, this is all in the second Beis HaMikdash, established to do it on a cup of wine. A Kaisyan, just like we do Kiddush on a cup of wine, Havdalah should also be on a cup of wine. The problem is then the economic situation changed back to terrible poverty. So the Gemara says they went back to tefillah. They canceled the cup. It was just impossible. It was too much of a strain. They canceled the cup of wine. They said, just do it in davening. Now, basically, what happened was like this. They realized that there's going to be no stability here. And Havdalah is going to go back from davening to wine, from wine to davening. Okay, because first it was davening. Then they canceled davening. They made it in a cup of wine. Then they canceled the cup of wine. They made it back to davening. They canceled the davening, they went to wine. They canceled the wine, they went back to davening like it used to be. And they realized it can't be something that based on poverty or wealth, it's going to change back and forth. So therefore, they decided that forever, every person to do Havdalah will do Havdalah in davening, so you're settled. And if you can find a cup of wine, if you can afford a cup of wine, do it also on a cup of wine. That's basically what the Gemara Lamed Gimel explains, and the Rishonim over there, the Rashba, the Ramban, and so forth. And that's why a person has to look for a cup of wine, because it's a mitzvah from Divrei Seifrim. You have to look. You can't just say if. You have to try to get it. But if you can't, for whatever reason, then you're yotze with Havdalah of davening, and you're good. That's how it worked, right? So this is so it wasn't so simple. That's why it's not such a simple thing, Havdalah Lakas. Because when they made the takana, there was no cup of wine. So that's the chiddush of this brayse. You came home at Shabbos, you got to make Havdalah. And we see the brayse continues. And if you have only one cup of wine, it's hard for us to imagine a person only has one cup of wine. And one cup of wine here doesn't mean a huge cup of wine, because then you could just split it into two. One cup of wine means a very small amount of wine, a small cup.
I mean, the ikar is to do on wine.
Havdalah on wine, yeah. Right, so that's the first thing. Number two, Beis. Number two, Shma Mina. The second thing we see from here is bracha tu'una kais. Birchas Hamazon needs a cup of wine. Our brayse obviously holds that Birchas Hamazon needs a cup of wine, because why? It tells us that if you don't have a cup of wine for benching, you should delay the Havdalah till after benching. That means this brayse is of the opinion that you don't bench without a cup of wine. And we see from the brayse that it's an obligation, because if it wouldn't be an obligation to do it, why would the brayse allow you to eat before Havdalah? You're allowed to have a whole meal mitzvah Shabbos before Havdalah. Why? Just in order for you to be able to bench on a cup of wine. If it's just an extracurricular thing, they wouldn't allow you to be over on the issur of eating before Havdalah. Is the charaya that they're dealing here with a very serious consideration, that you have to bench on a cup of wine, and you don't have a cup of wine, and therefore they say, you know what, you'll do Havdalah at the end of benching.
Does it require shalosh or just a afilu biyachid? The person himself.
So that's a very good question. What's the situation with Birchas Hamazon? Does it require a kais? So in Shulchan Aruch, in the laws of benching, I think it's Kuf Pei Beis or somewhere, one of those simonim, the Shulchan Aruch brings three shittas, three completely different shittas. Shitta number one is the most extreme. Birchas Hamazon, even an individual needs a cup of wine. Just like I have to bench, I have to do a cup of wine. That's one shitta. And I have to look for it. It's like a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah med divrei seifrim. That's the mashmos here in Gemara. Birchas Hamazon needs a cup of wine. And even an individual. That's shitta number one. Shitta number two, which is brought here in Tosfos and in other Rishonim. Shitta number two is An individual doesn't need Birchas Hamazon with a cup of wine. Only a zimun. If there's 3 people, or certainly 10 people, needs a cup of wine, but not in an individual. Shitta number 3 is that even 3 and 10 is only mitzvah min hamufchar, meaning it's not an obligation. You don't have to. It's not a chiyuv. It's a better way of doing it. And according to those shittas, for an individual, it's not even a mitzvah min hamufchar. Yeah. That's the minig. That's the minig generally, according to the second or third shitta, that it's a mitzvah min hamufchar to do it with 3 or with 10. And with 1, it's not even a mitzvah min hamufchar. That's the minig, I think, in most kehillas, according to most paiskim. But from this brisa, we see that Birchas Hamazon needs a cup of wine. And that's why you let him eat before Havdalah. Because if you hold that you don't need a cup of wine, then you wouldn't say this halacha, that you're allowed to eat before Havdalah. Why do you allow to eat before Havdalah? Because you would like to use a cup of wine? Especially if it's not even a mitzvah min hamufchar, right? Now, Tosfos brings a raya from here. In the Tosfos Shma min bracha tu'una kais, you see, the fourth Tosfos on the third Tosfos on Kufay Amid Beis. Ktsas mashma da afilu biyachid tu'una kais. From this Gemara, it's mashma at least a little bit that even an individual needs a cup. The hanichnas mashma shu yichidi. It says hanichnas lebeisa. He comes into his house and he wants to make havdalah himself. He's himself. He's going to eat him by himself, and still he needs a cup of wine. V'chein mashma lekaman the tanan shlishi omer lav birchas hamazon. In terms of the 4 cups on Pesach, v'kama b'gemara shma min birchas hamazon tu'una kais. V'arba kais is tiknu afilu b'yichidi. So it's mashma also later that you need a cup for an individual. Miyu yashlitchis mishum the birchas hamazon tu'una kais begimel tkinu b'Pesach afilu b'yachid kais lebirchas hamazon. Di b'shum pam ein tzricha ma'in kais b'birchas hamazon hayolem l'saken shir lekais shlishi. Tosfos says you don't have to say that the reason we do the 3rd cup on Birchas Hamazon by the Haggadah is because Pesach is because you always need kais b'yachid, lav davka. It could be usually it's with 3, but on Pesach they said even a yachid needs a kais for Birchas Hamazon, because if you would never need, so then why are you doing a kais for Birchas Hamazon? Do the kais, the 3rd cup, do something else. The fact that benching has a cup with 3, so Pesach, we already apply everybody's cup to Birchas Hamazon. There's no proof from Pesach that every Birchas Hamazon needs a cup of wine for everybody. Nonetheless, Tosfos says the minig of the world is not to do a cup of Birchas Hamazon b'yachid, only with 3 minimum. Rabbeinu Shlomo ben Rabbeinu Meir Omer lahatin kais afilu b'yachid. Rabbeinu Shlomo says no, even a yachid needs a kais. V'chein mudchuch b'medrash shoicher tov al krad shine Chaim shebarta, where the medrash also says to have a Birchas Hamazon cup b'yachid. V'oid mechiach moiri Rav Rabbi Chiel the tu'una kais afilu b'yachid. The ain't a tu'una kais lama manichei acher Hamazon yavdu lefnei Hamazon v'yoichel kol echad ba'atzmi v'oz loy tehei tu'una kais. Tosfos here brings a gevaldik raya that you need a kais Birchas Hamazon even for an individual. Why? Because even if there were 3 people who wanted to eat malava malka, if a person only has 1 cup of wine, you're saying don't make havdalah now, make havdalah after benching. Why? Because you need a cup for benching. Let the 3 people eat separately, so there won't be a zimun, so they won't need a kais. And then you can make havdalah right now. Is the charaya that won't help, because even if an individual eats and benches, they need a kais of wine. So from this Gemara, Tosfos says, from this brisa, it seems like that the Birchas Hamazon, even for a yachid, needs a kais, because if not, it's a gevaldik avert. You're going to let the guy eat before Havdalah. Why? So he could bench on a cup of wine, because there's 3 people. First of all, it says hanichnas, it's lashon yachid. But even if you want to say that there were many people there were 20 people there, so I have a better advice for you. Let them not eat together, so they won't need zimus, they won't need a cup. And then you can make Havdalah in the right time, and you'll bench without a cup. Is the charaya? That won't be a solution. Because Birchas Hamazon always needs a kaisayin according to this brisa. And that's why you let him delay the Havdalah, because he's going to have to use a cup of wine for benching. And he wants to eat. You're not going to say don't eat. But you want to be able to, you want him to eat. So therefore he eats and benches, and after the benching he'll do Havdalah on the same cup of wine.
So it's not like we did today, where some will make a...
Since halachically today we paskin most shittas lalacha that we don't do a kais b'yachid, so we don't have this heter. If I only have 1 cup of wine, I can't make havdalah after benching and eat before havdalah. Why? Because my Birchas Hamazon doesn't need a kais of wine, because I'm doing it b'yachid. You're right, Taka. That's why halachically we don't say this today.
I was asking about a zimun. On the Shabbos, Shalshudas and Shul, they're benching on a kos.
That's fine. I'm sorry, repeat your question again?
Shalshudas.
Yeah.
Zimun is made, and the leader is benching, and he benches over a kos. And does he makes a bracha, breaking a guffin over the kos and doesn't drink it?
Yes.
Doesn't make a bracha.
You don't make that, doesn't it?
Oh, you're asking now about Shalashudas. Okay.
Shows with a zimun with 3, not with 1. But and then later in Havdalah, he's again making a breaker of guffin, and he's trying to satisfy.
Okay. So we'll get to that in one moment. Let's just, the case of this brisa, before we get to your case of Shalashudas, is talking about, we'll get to it in a moment. It's a good question. It's talking about Mitzvah Shabbos. You want to make Havdalah, you have wine, you only have 1 cup of wine. So the brisa let you not make Havdalah. Wash for a meal Mitzvah Shabbos before Havdalah. And then eat. And then fill up your cup of wine. Bench. And make Havdalah together with benching. Bench, Hagafen, Psamim, Ha'esh, Havdalah, and drink the wine, even though you're eating before Havdalah. So we see from this brisa that Birchas HaMazon to una kois. It must have a cup. In other words, it's a mitzvah medivrei soifrim to go find a cup of wine. Just like it's a mitzvah to light Hanukkah candles and to read the Megillah and to do any other mitzvahs, to light Shabbos candles and to make Kiddush on wine. There's a mitzvah to bench on wine. But if you say that Birchas HaMazon doesn't need a kois as an obligation, only as a mitzvah min hamufchar, even 3 and 10, certainly 1, so then this mitzvah won't override the prohibition to taste, to eat before Havdalah. Because this is a prohibition and this is not a mitzvah. You understand? So therefore we will not let you, according to this, drink and eat before Havdalah. You first have to make Havdalah on the cup. And then if you want, have a malava malka and you'll bench without a cup of wine. Because there's no chiyuv to use a cup of wine. And you don't even have to wait for a cup of wine. You could just bench and you're good.
There's even with him, because there's a mitzvah and a mufcha.
There's 3 shittas. Shitta number 1 is it's a mitzvah even 1. Shitta number 2 is not 1, only above, zimun and 10. And shitta number 3 is it's a mitzvah min hamufchar, even 3 and 10. It's not a chiyuv. Yeah. Mitzvah min hamufchar means it's a hidur. It's a beautiful thing to do, but you're not obligated. You're not obligated. It's a beautiful thing to do. And so some taka are makbid even 3 taka. Some dafke 10. And according to that, with 1, it's not even a mitzvah min hamufchar. So
according to that, when you're benching and making Havdalah at the same time over a single kos, they had a different nusach in the benching for that?
No, same exact nusach. When you do it with benching, you'll bench, you finish benching, and then you start your Havdalah like a regular Mitzvah Shabbos. You hold the cup as a yachid.
You're making a bracha or not?
You finish benching, you make he nekel Yeshua. Same thing. No. Yeah, you're going to go straight into the Hagafen of Havdalah, which is also Hagafen after benching. It works. Yeah. And then you're good. Yeah.
I heard from Rabbi Matzah, the Blemished Chai said you can remember it because it goes mouth, nose, eyes, and brain. Mouth is Birchas HaMazon, nose is Pesachim, eyes is the flame, and the Havdalah is the brain.
Okay. So the Blemished Chai says the mouth is benching, the nose is the psamim, the eyes is ha'esh, you see the fire, and Havdalah, you mean there's a consciousness. But Havdalah is also the mouth.
Yeah.
And Birchas HaMazon also needs das.
I didn't ask the Blemished Chai about that.
Okay. The Blemished Chai says this?
Yeah, Rabbi Matzah.
Yeah. What does the Zer Shimshon say?
He's on the tour where a person's called Kadosh, that keeps wine from Rabbi Matzah. He said a story from a reference. He said he only had girls and had boys, so he went to Kankanevsky. So he went to school. So he said, "You drink wine, what's your Shabbos?" It's great. That year.
Wow. Okay, now.
It's called Kadosh.
Yeah, Kadosh Shem Allah. Okay, now there's one more very important detail. This is very practical. This is all a Suda Mitzvah Shabbos. What happens if you're having Shalosh Shudas, like in a regular Shul? And the Shalosh Shudas continues. And we learned before in the Gemara, on Daf Kofei, that you could continue the meal Mitzvah Shabbos as long as you want, as long as you washed before Shabbos was over, before Shkia, right? You could continue the meal throughout the day and throughout the night, and you're good. And then you bench. Before Ma'ariv and Havdalah, you bench. Usually when we bench, we make hagafen and we drink the wine. What happens to that cup of wine after benching, which is already now Mitzvah Shabbos, and you're not supposed to drink before Havdalah? So,
That's why we don't drink.
so here's the full picture. So the Shulchan Aruch Harav in Siman Reish Tzadik Tes, he brings from the Magen Avraham that Mitzvah Shabbos comes, you bench and you drink the cup of Birchas Hamazon. You didn't make Havdalah. So he explains, since the cup of benching is part of the meal, for the person who does benching on a cup of wine always, that's part of the meal, because part of a meal is to bench, and bench comes with a cup of wine. So therefore, it's Bechlal Hasuda. So just like you're allowed to continue the meal before Havdalah, you're allowed to drink the cup of wine after benching before Havdalah. This is the one who always benches on a cup of wine. But he who sometimes benches without a cup of wine, based on the shittas that Birchas Hamazon doesn't need a cup of wine, then you're not allowed to drink the cup of Birchas Hamazon before Havdalah. If you hold that you have to do Birchas Hamazon with a kais, so just like you're allowed to bench Mitzvah Shabbos and you're allowed to eat Mitzvah Shabbos, you're allowed to drink Mitzvah Shabbos as part of the meal. So you're allowed to drink the cup of wine after benching. But like the shittas that Birchas Hamazon doesn't need a kais, so you're allowed to eat after Shabbos. You're allowed to bench after Shabbos. That's part of the meal. But the kais is just extra credit. So maybe you wouldn't be allowed to drink that cup before Havdalah. So what happens now? So you now have a cup of wine waiting, right? So here, it's interesting how this developed. So in Shulchan Aruch he says, Shulchan Aruch Harav, quoting the Shulchan Aruch, says, whether you hold that Birchas Hamazon needs a kais, so you're allowed to drink it before Havdalah, or you're not allowed to drink it before Havdalah, right? Don't make Havdalah on the same cup of wine. Why? Because if you have another cup of wine, so then you try ein ois and mitzvahs chavilas. Benching you did on one cup of wine. Havdalah is a separate mitzvah, do it on another cup of wine. So if you have 2 cups of wine, ein ois and mitzvahs chavilas. So you'll do Havdalah on another cup of wine. You'll drink the Havdalah, and then you'll drink your first cup of wine from benching Shalosh Shudas. You don't have to make 2 agafans. Yeah, you don't have to make 2 agafans. You made agafan on Havdalah. Once you make agafan, you could now drink both cups of wine. You drink the Havdalah wine, and then you go back to the first cup from Shalosh Shudas, and you drink that. What happens if you don't have another cup for Havdalah, right? You don't have another cup for Havdalah. So then, of course, after benching, you'll do Ma'ariv and Havdalah, and you'll drink from that cup. You'll drink from that cup. Okay, because you only have 1 cup of wine, so then obviously you don't have a second cup of wine, so you'll do that.
People don't do that. Bench in Shul, you just leave it there and you go home and make Havdalah.
Usually pour it back.
Well, you put it what?
You pour it back in the bottle.
Yeah, but you don't drink it, really. I mean, it stays. Oh, you pour it in there.
We pour it back.
Okay, however, I just want to bring out the shit of the Rambam. And that is, the Rambam holds not like this. The Rambam in Hilchos Shabbos, Perek Chavtes, holds that if you're eating on Shabbos and you have a cup of wine and you bench, the Rambam doesn't hold Birchas Hamazon to una kais. He holds like the latter shittas, that it's just a mitzvah and a mufchar. So you're not allowed to drink it before Havdalah. So the Rambam says you make Havdalah on the same cup of wine, and then you just drink that cup of wine, which is the same cup you use for benching on Havdalah. Ask them a farshim, what about ein ois and mitzvahs, chavilas? Yeah. Apparently the Rambam holds that Havdalah and benching, since it's both on the past, is not called chavilas. If you're talking about 2 separate mitzvahs, you say chavilas. But for example, Kiddush and Birchas Hamazon, like we learned about Friday evening, right? You use 2 separate cups because ein ois and mitzvahs chavilas. But the Rambam holds that Havdalah and benching is not called ein ois and mitzvahs chavilas. The Maggid Mishnah says both are ala avar, both are on the past. Birchas Hamazon is what you ate and you drank, and Havdalah is saying goodbye to Shabbos and the Suddas of Shabbos. So therefore he holds that l'chatchila you could use the same cup for benching and the same cup for Havdalah, which is also the minig in many places, that you bench, you take the cup, you daven ma'ariv, you use the same cup for Havdalah, and you drink it. same kais for Birchas Hamazon and for Havdalah.
I think a shear when there is a shade of curse. It doesn't also make two separate curses. Yes. Because I know it's
I'm sorry, what? Yeah. 2 cups of wine, you're saying. Right, yeah. Weiter. So the second thing is that what? It needs a bracha. Next. Shma mina, koishel bracha tzarich shir. We have a third thing we learn from this brayse. The koishel bracha means the cup on which we make Birchas Hamazon, or the cup on which we make a bracha. Koishel bracha means any cup on which you make a bracha, like Kiddush, Havdalah, benching, tzarich shir. That cup needs a shear. What do we mean a shear? There has to be a fourth of a lug. The volume of a fourth of a lug in that cup. It's not enough to have a few drops of wine. Why? Because if kosher bracha wouldn't need a shear, then the whole brayso wouldn't make sense. You're telling me that I don't have enough wine for Havdalah and benching. Take the wine, split it up, use part for Havdalah and part for benching. Is araya? I don't have. I can't. Why can't I? Because I don't have a lot of wine. And I need a shear for every kais that needs a bracha. I can't just use an ounce of wine. I need what's called a fourth of a lug. A lug is a volume of 6 eggs. So a kaisel bracha is the volume of an egg and a half, because it's a fourth of a lug, a quarter of 6, which is an egg and a half, which is approximately, there's the shear, that's what a revius is, between 3 and 4 ounces. If it's between 3 and 4 ounces, and I have that amount of wine in my becher, I have my little cup, now split it up. Do 1.5 now, and 1.5 there. What's the problem? Why do you have to wait with Havdalah? The answer is, Kosher bracha tzarich shir. I can't make Havdalah on 1.5 ounces. I have to make Havdalah on 3.5 ounces, 4 ounces, whatever the exact shear revius halug is. That's the raya. So Mele, I cannot split it up. Raya 4. Halacha number 4. So we already did 3. Number 1, you have to make Havdalah on wine, not only davening. Number 2, Birchas Hamazon needs a cup of wine. Number 3, every kais with a bracha needs a shear of a fourth of a lug. Number 4, Shma mina, we learned from here, HaMevarech tzarich sheyitar. When you make a bracha on a cup of wine, you always have to taste from it. It's not enough that you just have a cup of wine in your hand and you make the brachas. After you finish the bracha, you have to taste from this cup of wine. Why? Because it's not respectful for the cup of wine. As Rashi explains elsewhere, it's not respectful for the cup of wine to make a bracha and not drink from it. And therefore, if you make Kiddush or Havdalah and you do not taste at all from the cup of wine, you did not fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush or Havdalah. How do we see this? How do we see this from here? We see it from here. Parshas. If you don't have to taste the wine, what's the problem? Make Havdalah, leave the wine, and then bench, and then you'll drink. Or don't drink. What's the problem? Why can't you use the same cup of wine? The answer, of course, is you got to taste it. Once you taste it, you're not going to have enough wine for benching. That's why you have to delay the Havdalah. Okay?
So then the only problem is Shalosh Shudas. Because after Shalosh Shudas, we don't. Most of the people that I know don't drink the wine.
You don't make a bracha?
They make a bracha.
Make a bracha?
On the benching on the course.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your shaila?
The person cannot drink wine for some reason. You have to drink wine. And you pick the smallest shear, which is about 3 ounces. You have to drink the whole Arvei.
If you have to drink...
The entire, do you have to drink the entire cup if you pick the smallest shear, or is it enough to drink the majority?
The halacha in Shulchan Aruch and Hilchos Shabbos and Siman Reishai and Aleph, which is the laws of Kiddush, is that the person who makes Kiddush has to be toyim from the kois ki meloi lugmov. Meloi lugmov means that if you put it to one side of the cheek, it should fill it up. It doesn't mean that the whole mouth, meloi lugmov, has to be filled with wine, but it means if I would put it on one side, it would protrude, which is basically the roiv of a revius. So if a revius is, let's say, 4 ounces, it would be a little more than 2 ounces. A little more than 2 ounces by a regular person. It has to be according to everybody, according to their meloi lugmov. So you have to make sure if you have a huge mouth, it would have to be more, but you for sure don't need more than a revius. In other words, even if you have a huge person and 4 ounces would not fill it up, you don't have to do more than a revius. If you drank a revius, you're certainly good, but it's not even a revius. In most people, it's the roiv of a revius. The question is, and the Rashbam talks about it here, what if the person himself didn't taste it? Somebody else tasted the Kiddush. right? You give it to somebody else, one of the people standing there, right? So the halacha is, that's what the Rishonim say here, the halacha is that, and it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, the halacha is that you're still Yotze Kiddush. In other words, even if the person himself doesn't do it, you still Yotze, at least somebody drinks it. As we know, the mitzvah min hamufcher, it's not an obligation, but the mitzvah min hamufcher that's brought in Shulchan Aruch is that everybody should enjoy the kosher bracha, everybody should drink. You don't need everybody to have malay lugmov. You don't have everybody. You need one person to drink a raiva reviyas. But the mitzvah min hamufcher is that everybody should enjoy the kosher bracha. So that's generally how we do it. It's just kedai to be moisef that the Gaonim bring, and the Shulchan Aruch brings the name of the Gaonim, they hold that the Mekadosh himself has to drink Kemaloi Lugmov, and even if everybody else drank Kemaloi Lugmov and he didn't, you're not Yotze Kiddush. That's the Shittas HaGaonim, which is a much more stringent Shitta. You can't give it to somebody else. He himself has to be Toyim Kemaloi Lugmov, and as the Shulchan Aruch Rav says, it's Kedai Lechatchila to be cautious for this opinion, at least by Kiddush. However, by Havdalah and everything else that needs a kois, the Gaonim Amoida, that somebody can taste it. By Kiddush, the Gaonim hold, Kiddush Friday evening, that you yourself have to do it. But all the other kois shel brachas they hold, they also agree that if somebody does Kemaloi Lugmov, like Havdalah or benching, is fine, even if you did not do it on your own.
Why don't you say the Mekadosh is Shemei Ka'ona? That you do it say just by listening to what...
You're Yotze Kiddush just by listening. It's a mitzvah min hamufcher that everybody should taste a little bit of the wine, but they don't have to.
I'm saying the Mekadosh, the one who made
the Mekadosh himself. So that's what the Gemara says, that we see from here that you have to taste Kiddush. All kois shel brachas, whenever you make a bracha on kois, there's a mitzvah to taste it. Either him or at least one of the listeners.
So that trumps the Shemei Ka'ona?
Right.
But Paisa does a separate halacha.
In other words, the chiyuv is not, according to most opinions and according to all opinions, by benching or havdalah, that he himself has to taste it, but somebody has to taste it. You see, the Rashbam says, the third to the last Rashbam, right? If one person drinks, everybody is mitz, everybody is yotze. Everybody is yotze. And as he puts, even a child would also be good. Even a child.
So the Kaddish is not drinking? Even the person doesn't have to make...
The Gaonim hold by Kiddush, you have to drink it yourself, the Mekadosh. That's the Gaonim. Most shittas are not like that. But that's only Kiddush. Okay, but certainly we see from this Gemara that you need to taste it. Why? Because if you wouldn't have to taste it, what's the problem? Make Havdalah, leave the wine, make benching, do benching, and you have wine. What's the problem? It's the Charaya. You can't do that. Why can't you do it? Because you have to taste the wine. Next, Shma Mina. Fifth halacha. Ta'amai pigamai. This is a very interesting halacha. If you taste from the cup of wine, if you take the cup and you pour it into your mouth, you taste from it, you're paigim the wine from being worthy to be used for a kosher bracha. It's called blemishing the wine. Before you make the bracha, if you take and you drink from it a little bit, this wine is called yayin pogum. It's blemished wine, because it's basically, imagine I give you a cup of wine, and before I give it to you, I go like this, right? It's something distasteful about it. So here you're preparing a cup to bless Hashem on this cup of wine. If you drink from it, it blemishes the wine, and that's what we learn from here. How do we learn from here? How do we learn this from here?
Don't share the germs.
I guess so, yeah. Yeah. Pashat. What's the problem? You could have made Havdalah, tasted a little bit, taken a little bit, right? Drink whatever you have to drink, and then you'll leave the rest for Berachas Hamazon. What's the problem? Okay. Apparently, you're asking, you need Malay Lugmav. Apparently, the Gemara understood that the Bryce is not talking about a person who has mamish, 3.5 ounces, but a person who has a little more, not enough to have 2 revi'asin that you could split up into 2 cups. That he doesn't have. But he has a little more than a revi'. He just doesn't have 2 revi'as for Avdallah and Berachas Hamazon. But he has a Malay Lugmav more than a revi'as. Right? So it says Ein lo yala kais echad because he doesn't have 2 revi'asin, but he has. So l'chayre he could make Havdalah, drink Malay Lugmav, from the cup, still have a revius for benching, and it would be good. So I understand you have to taste. So taste, Malay Lugumov, and then you'll use the rest. Is the Charaya, since we don't say to do that, do Avdallah, drink Malay Lugumov, right? And then bench. Is the Charaya that what? That Tamai B'gamai, the Brisa holds that if you will make Havdalah and drink from the cup, it's going to blemish the cup of wine, and we won't be able to use it for benching. Because it's not the covered habracha to make a bracha on what's left over in the cup of wine after you drank from it. That's what we learned from here. If you have a big cup, it's not a problem. You could just split it up. You could split it up.
Fill it up all the way.
Well, if you don't have, you don't have. But if
And if it wants to divide it, should rather fill it up and then reuse it, or fill it up half and use it later?
Like if he gives it out and then there's nothing left, he keeps putting more wine to himself.
You would do it, fill up the half.
If you didn't have a second release, couldn't you just take a little of the wine, take the bagama, drink from it, pour some out before you, take the bagama, and then use it a second time?
okay, so with Pekam, you have to know a few things. First of all, Yayin Pogum is only if you drink from the cup itself. If you don't drink from the cup itself, for example, if you pour first into another cup, that's not called Yayin Pogum. Okay, that's just a cloud with Yayin Pogum. So Eibazai, we have a problem, because why don't you just make Havdalah, pour Malay Lugmov into another cup, drink it, you still have a revius, so you didn't make it pogum. I understand you can't drink from that cup because it's going to be pogum, the wine, you won't be able to use it for benching. The answer is because you have to drink from a cup that has a revius. So in Mela you won't be able to do that. So that's why you have to drink from that cup which has a revius. Once you drink from that cup, you're pogum it, and that's why you delay Havdalah.
You pour a little bit more than the revius to the second cup.
You don't have
enough. That's the point. You don't have two revius in.
If you drank,
It doesn't matter then where you
how much do
drink
you need
it
to take the bagama of it? Well, I guess is my question before. If you poured off an increment, you're left with the revius, you taste it, and you take the bagama off with that amount, that increment that you took off initially, then you have massaging your coat.
Right, so Tosfos explains, the last Tosfos says that whenever you need a kais, like Havdalah or benching or Kiddush, you have to drink from a kais that has a revius. If you pour out the Malay Lugmov, you're not drinking from a kais that has a revius.
I'm asking exactly that question. You have a little bit more than a revius, enough to pour something off. If you're not,
right.
You're not to cure the bagam.
Right.
You drink, you refill it. You take the bagam off and you raise your shear.
Take off the pagam.
Oh, so that's true. With Yayin Pagum, the Rishonim say that if you refill it, it undoes the bgam. But here you don't have wine for that.
So there's not enough wine to...
Right.
So it's less than a revius that you would fix it.
Right. Yayin Pagum, if I drink from a cup of Kiddush, right, before, or benching, and I refill it, then you're good. It's not Pagum anymore.
You drank a Malay Lugma.
So usually people won't even drink that.
In other words, you have to
replenish it. You have to replenish it. Huh?
Just a drop?
Yeah. You have to replenish it, yeah. And then it's not called Pagum anymore. So Shmamina ta'amai b'gamai. If you...
That's what
I was about to ask. Is water, does that...
You could add water, but only if the wine wasn't diluted yet with water, and the water won't ruin its taste. You understand? If the yayin was already diluted, it was mazug, diluted with wine, and adding the water is going to ruin its taste.
That's a different thing.
It used to be that you used to have added.
But if it's appropriate to add water, then you're good. Yeah, then you're good.
Did they make wine from paste?
Did they add water?
Why do they pour it back in?
Yeah, they used to dilute the wine with water.
So when their barrels were already diluted, but when they bought the wine, was it a paste or was it in a barrel with...
I guess depended on different, yeah.
Didn't we learn earlier that there was a paste that they did?
Yeah, usually, yeah.
So it was already mixed when they bought the...
Often.
And a lot of the season have minutes that they wash the place and leave the water and they pour it into the lane.
Yeah, mazuk, yeah. To be mazuk.
But it's only for Kiddush, not Havdalah.
Weiter, Shma Mina. The sixth thing we learned from here is Tom Mavdil. Even if you ate Mitzvah Shabbos before Havdalah, you still make Havdalah Mitzvah Shabbos, and you don't have to wait till tomorrow before the meal. We're going to see later there's going to be an opinion that if somebody ate on Mitzvah Shabbos before Havdalah, so then he can't do Havdalah anymore on Mitzvah Shabbos, because he ate, and he has to wait till Sunday and do Havdalah on Sunday before he ate. But our Brisa obviously doesn't hold that, because our Brisa clearly says that what? That if you only have 1 cup of wine, you can have the meal, and you can do Havdalah after a meal. We don't say, you already ate, just bench, and tomorrow you'll do Havdalah. We don't say that. You could be Mavdil Mitzvah Shabbos, you don't have to wait till tomorrow after the meal. Number 7.
Tam Mavdil means any food? Any food?
Yeah. Shma Mina, number 7. Omer shtei kedushas al kos echad. Even if you don't have 2 cups of wine, you could say 2 kedushas on 1 cup, meaning, even though usually we don't do 2 mitzvahs on 1 cup of wine, like Birchas Hamazon and Havdalah, because Einois and mitzvahs chavilas. But when you have 1 cup of wine, he says, according to this brisa, you could do shtei kedushas, you could do on its Sai Birchas Hamazon, and Sai Havdalah on the same cup of wine, and it's completely not a problem, right? Even though you're benching and you're doing Havdalah, and the 2 things are separate. Why are the 2 things separate? Because benching is for Yom Alav Malka. Havdalah is for Shabbos. It's completely 2 separate mitzvahs. Nonetheless, the Brisa holds that what? You could do it on 1 cup of wine. And the reason is because you only have 1 cup. If you would have 2 cups. The Rambam, I told you, holds that you could use the same cup for benching and Havdalah, but he's talking about a different benching. He's talking about the benching from Shabbos. That's one with Havdalah. Havdalah is for Shabbos, and benching is for the food of Shabbos. There, the Rambam holds you could use the same cup of wine, even if you have 2 cups, which is how many of us do it, including Chabad. You do Shalosh Shudas, you bench, and you use the same cup of wine for Havdalah, because the Rambam holds in Hilchas Shabbos, that's not called Chavilas, because that's the same genre, because you're benching on the meal of Shabbos, and you're making Havdalah on Shabbos, on the past, including on the Suddas of Shabbos. That's one. But here we're talking about in the Brisa that it's a meal of Mitzvah Shabbos. That and Havdalah are 2 separate things. That Birchas Hamazon is not the same thing. That's why he says when you have 1 cup, you have no choice, we let you do it. But if you wouldn't have 1 cup of wine, if you had 2 cups, you do Havdalah, then you do benching. It's 2 separate mitzvahs. I just wanted to clarify that.
So even if you have 2 cups, Chabad does, they take the same cup of wine?
They do the same one from Shalosh Shudas, even if you have an extra cup of wine, because you have to drink the Birchas Hamazon cup.
Right,
and you want to make Havdalah.
You would drink it separately.
So in Shulchan Aruch Taka, he says, the Shulchan Aruch Rav Taka says, like it says in Shulchan Aruch, that you should just do a second Havdalah cup and drink both cups after Havdalah. But I was just saying that Shittas HaRambam is not that way. That Shittas HaRambam is not. The Rambam holds you it's the same cup. It's the Shit of the Rambam. Next, 8, Shma Mina Beishamahi V'alibed Rabbi Yehuda. This Bryce is following Beishamai according to Rabbi Yehuda, because remember Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda argued how to explain what's the right version of the argument between Beishamai and Beis Hillel about benching and Havdalah when you do them together on 1 cup of wine. According to Rabbi Meir, everybody holds that you do first B'rei Meriah Eish, and at the end you do Havdalah, and the argument is when you do benching and when you do Psamim. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, everybody holds first benching and at the end Havdalah, and the argument is B'rei Meriah Eish, and then Psamim is Beishamai, or Beis Hillel B'rei Minei Psamim, and then B'rei Meriah Eish. And since this Brisa says you do Havdalah after benching and you do B'rei Meriah Eish before Psamim, it's obviously this Brisa is following Beishamai according to Rabbi Yehuda. Reb Ashi Amar. Reb Ashi makes a comment. So after we have these 8 halachas, what are the 8 halachas? Halacha number 1 is even if you said Havdalah by davening, you have to do on a cup of wine. Halacha number 2 is Birchas Hamazon needs a cup of wine. Halacha number 3 is every kaishal bracha needs at least a shear of revius. That was halacha number 3. Halacha number 4 is a kaishal bracha, you have to taste the wine. Halacha number 5 is if you taste it, you blemished it. Halacha number 6, even after you eat Mitzvah Shabbos, you could still make Havdalah. Halacha number 7, if you have 1 cup, you could do Birchas Hamazon and Havdalah on 1 cup of wine. Halacha number 8, not halacha number 8. Proof number 8 that this is following Beishamai according to Rabbi Yehuda. Reb Ashi Amar, 2 of these halachas are the same. In other words, one was superfluous. Ta'amai b'gamai v'kol shebracha tzarich shir chadam milsei. That when you taste, you blemish, and the kosher bracha needs a shir is really one concept. It's one halacha. It's not two separate things. The Gemara didn't mean it. We shouldn't have said it as two separate things. It's really one thing. What does it mean? V'hachi kamar. My time it ta'amai b'gamai mishum the kosher bracha tzarich shir. What's the reason? That if you tasted from the wine, you blemished it? Because kosher bracha needs a shear. And therefore, if you taste from it, the shear is going to be lacking. And you won't be able to use it for kosher bracha. But if you would have had enough wine, and after you taste it, you would have had a shear revius, Rabbi Ashi holds the te'ima would not blemish it. That's what Rabbi Ashi holds. In other words, Rabbi Ashi is saying that the halacha of ta'amai b'gamai and the halacha that kosher bracha needs a shear, it's really one thing. It's not 8 halachas that you learned, but only 7 halachas. Why? The pegima that we're talking about is not because you drank from the wine and you blemished the wine. It's because you don't have enough to shear. It's about a quantity, right, that you decrease from the shear. In other words, you could say that the Bryce is talking about that the kais doesn't have more than a revius. So if you would make havdalah and you would taste from it, you won't have a shear anymore for havdalah. Not because b'gam. We understood lechatchila that there was more than a shear revius in the kais. And therefore, tasting from it doesn't take away the revius. It just takes away the fact that it becomes yayin pogum. That's the problem. Rabbi Ashi is saying, no, there's no need to say that. There was exactly a revius. And the problem of b'gam is not b'gam. Problem of b'gam is you just don't have enough wine because you need a shear. So Mele, you can't learn from this brisa that, let's say I would have 20 ounces of wine and I go like this and I have a blot more. Can I use that for benching without touching it up? Rabbi Ashi says, maybe yeah. I don't have a raya from this brisa to amay b'gamay. I have a raya from this brisa that you need a shear. That, yeah. You don't have a raya to amay b'gamay. In other words, it could be Rabbi Ashi holds the concept of b'gam, but he just doesn't hold it. You could learn it from this. You could learn it from this brisa.
Why would they just write then the shear? What if the
No, to amay b'gamay because kosher bracha tzarich shear.
It's arrived in the Gemara.
B'gamay doesn't mean b'gam as because you drank from it. B'gamay means you decreased it because it needs a shear. It's one thing.
But it's very strange because pagama usually it's kind of blemish. So it's a quality.
You're saying it's not quantity.
Because if it's with the quantity, you should have said kos mula.
Okay, the answer is, you're saying b'gam is quality. The answer is, even quantity here is about quality. You understand?
That's already, you have shear, and that's you have...
The reason you need a revius halug is because of quality. So mainly that's why we call it b'gam. Because even the revius is it's a concept of quality. And the Gemara says, Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi kafbid achatz b'begimah. Rabbi Yaakov, the son of Idi, he was makbid. He was meticulous, even on a barrel that's blemished. Meaning, even you have a barrel and you drink a little bit from it, even though it's a barrel, still it will disqualify that wine for kiddush or for benching. Not only a cup. Mainly you drink from a cup, you say, okay, you ruined it. When you have a barrel and you drank from it, what's the big deal? He says, no, you cannot use it anymore. And that means, even if you take this wine, right? Even if you take this wine and you pour it into another cup, it's yayin pogum. You cannot use this wine anymore. Why? Because you drank from it. It doesn't mean if you poured it into another cup. That's not pogum. Pogum means you drank from the barrel. Reb Idi bar Shisha kabed akasa b'gimah. Reb Idi disagreed. He was only makbed on a kais that was pogum, on a goblet. But if you had a huge goblet like a barrel and you drank from it, he had no problem with that b'gam. Let's just remember again the halacha in Shulchan Aruch and based on the Rosh from the Yerushalmi that if you fill it up with wine, it's ois b'gam, right? So remember that. If somebody drinks from the cup and then you refill it, it's fine. It's ois b'gam.
In this case, you need to refill the barrel.
But here you don't have. Oh yeah, you would refill the barrel. Yeah.
How do you refill the barrel? Wasn't just a drop of it?
No, you just have to put a little wine. You don't have to refill. You don't have to. Mar, the son of Rabashi, even a chavis. A chavis, how does he translate chavis?
He translates it as barrel. The first one he translates as pitcher.
Kad is pitcher, and chavis is barrel. So Rabbi Yaakov was makbid on a pitcher, Rabbi Idi only on a cup, and Marbi Rabashi not only on a pitcher, but even on a even on a barrel. Although the Rashbam says, that's funny, even though the Rashbam says it's a small barrel, because he says if it's a huge barrel, then even Marber Rabashi wouldn't agree. Just want to say the Rashbam is medayik from the word kapid, that it's only lechatchila. Let's say you have no other wine besides yayin pagum, the halacha is you could make a bracha. That's why kapid means they were makbid, they tried very hard that it shouldn't happen. But if you have no other wine and this is the situation and I can't refill it, so b'diavad you could make a bracha even on yayin pagum.
Which Rashbam was that?
See, take a look on the Rashbam. Kapid akasa pegima. You see, kapid akasa pegima. It's the second of the wide lines in Rashbam. Lekiddush ulahavdalu leberachas hamazon ulechol brachas shetiknu lesadron alayayin shelo yivarech al kois pagam. Avalim roitza. Very interesting now addition. Avalim roitza lishtas yayin tzarich levarech beida priagafen. What if I have a kois pagum and I want to drink it? I can't make kiddush on it, but I want to drink it. So you have to make a gafen. It's blemished. How do you make a bracha? The answer is asur la'anis min ha'olam hazeh b'lo bracha. You're not allowed to enjoy this world without a bracha. It's blemished wine, so what? But you want to drink it. To make kiddush, havdalah, benching on it, or any other bracha like sheva brachas, it can be pagum, at least l'chatchila. But if you want to drink the pagum, you still have to make a bracha. The word kapid sounds it's lechatchila.
Pagum doesn't make a treif, because that's when you wouldn't have to make the then.
So it's tzorich lemitzvah, so you can't use it, but tzorich leachila you should.
Yeah, you have to make a bracha. Don't think that you don't have to make a bracha because of that. You still would have to make a bracha. Right, you still have to make a bracha.
Is this blemished pagam or missing, like in?
Rabbi Ashi holds the word begam means missing. But these Amirayim held the word begam means blemished.
In the Rashbam, where he says it's
blemished. Yeah. Says the Gemara.
Rambam says that the remaining wine is viewed as being a mere leftover. It's not covered
Right.
for a kosher bracha.
Right. The wine that's left in the cup is considered a leftover, and therefore it's disrespectful to use this wine to make a bracha to Hashem on it. It's disrespectful. And that's why they were makbid not to have a kais pagum. And that's what we learned from our brisa, that ta'amai begamai, and that's why you don't taste it. At least according to Rabashi. I mean, at least not according to Rabashi. Rabashi holds you can't learn from it. Yeah. Okay, we'll stop here. I just want to notice, it's just very interesting. Take a look in Tosfos. The second Tosfos on the top. Mishum de koisha bracha. Mishum de koisha bracha tzarich shir. Reb Ashi loy polig amoyroi de besamuch. Ve'is loy shaper tamei begamai. Ela de mehalek ele mishum minei kamar. You don't have to say Reb Ashi doesn't believe in the issue of begam. He agrees. He just says there's no proof from the Bryce. Then Tosfos says, kapid akasa pegima. Pidish Rashbam. The kapid lechatchila dafka. V'im ein loy ala pagum, yikadosh alav. V'teima. Im kein eichi tiru lechel koidem havdalim mishum kpeda de pegima. According to the Rashbam, there's a big question. If pagam is only lechatchila, so why would the Rabbanan override the isser of eating before Havdalah so that you should be able to bench on a cup of wine? Let him do Havdalah, taste, be poigim the wine, right? And then bench on it. It's a kois pagum, but at least he didn't eat before Havdalah. That's a prohibition. If pagam is a problem essentially, not only lechatchila, then I understand. They didn't want pagum, so they let you eat before Havdalah because you only have one cup of wine, right? And it's a mitzvah to have a cup on benching. But if it's only lechatchila, so if just for you to do something lechatchila, they overrid isser to eat before Havdalah. Tosfos says, Mihu roi Rashbam lismach alav b'shas adchak. The Rashbam is worthy to rely on him b'shas hatchak, meaning if there's no other alternative, that if you only have yayin pagum, you could rely on the Rashbam to make a bracha, and you don't say it's a bracha levatala, you could rely on the Rashbam, even though Tosfos has a problem with the Rashbam's interpretation.
B'diavad can do it. Not lechatchila, but b'diavad.
Right, yeah, of course, but the Yevet for sure, yeah. The Rashbam also says better, but Tosfos thought lechatchila that the whole yisoid of the Rashbam is wrong, that kapid, means it's a serious thing that you can't do it without it. If you have yayin pogam, don't do it. And then the Gemara would make sense why they let you eat before Havdalah, because you have no choice.
I have an interesting proof.
Yeah.
That the really is 4.5 ounces.
Yeah.
It says in the Zohar, what's the minimum amount of blood the person needs to live?
Yeah.
That's a revis.
Yeah.
But everybody knows much more blood in the body.
Yeah.
So it says the revis of blood in the brain. So I went to Google and I asked, what's the average amount of blood in the human brain? 150 milliliter. That's 4.5 ounces.
Wow. Wow. So the Zohar says that a revius of blood in the brain is what we need to live. And the average brain has how much blood?
150 milliliter.
150 milliliter, which is 4.5 ounces.
I think you mentioned, you say you're allowed to drink ben hashmoshes. And
Mayim, you're saying water.
yeah. And I remember clearly, Alter Rebbe brings it down in the Shulchan Aruch, and it sounds very strange, but it says there not to do it.
Yeah.
Because the neshamas are in the hin.
Yeah, I know what you're referring to.
Yeah.
You're referring to.
So that they could be a
You're referring to a very interesting thing. A very interesting thing that Tosfos also brings here about drinking at night, right? Drinking at night.
But it wasn't clear Friday night for ending.
Yeah. In Siman Reish Tzadik Aleph.
What's the money?
Thank you. In Siman Reish Tzadik Aleph, he says the time of Suda Shlishis is, right, from Zman Mincha G'dayla till the night, okay, right? And, because Shalosh Sudas has to be in the afternoon. Those who say that once Zman Mincha G'dayla comes, you shouldn't make a Suda till you daven Mincha, right? So they say you should daven Mincha before Suda Shlishis, because once the time of Mincha comes, you shouldn't make a Suda, so therefore you should do Shalosh Sudas before Mincha. He says, but those who say you could do a Suda before Mincha, so they say fakert. It's better to do Sudas Gimel before Mincha. Yeah, this the Torah brings from Rabbeinu Tam. We'll soon see where in Pesachim. You should do it before Mincha. Why? Because between Mincha and Ma'ariv, on Bein Hashmashas, I'll soon show you in Tosfos, you're not allowed to drink water in the middle of the meal or after the meal. Why? Because it's close to the time when the neshamas are going back to Gehenna on Motzei Shabbos. And if you drink water from the river, you're stealing from the dead. Because they want to cool themselves off in water before they go back to Gehenna. And it's a danger. That's what Tosfos brings in Pesachim, we'll soon see. So therefore they say better to do Sudas Gimel before Mincha. Because once Mincha comes, and you're going to continue between Mincha and Ma'ariv Bein Hashmashos, you're going to drink water, it's a problem. Our minig is we do eat Shalosh between Mincha and Ma'ariv. He says, don't drink water that was taken from the river. Only water in the house that was drawn from the river earlier. Or drink other beverages, because if you go to the water and you take water then, Bein Hashmashos, it's a danger because you're stealing from the dead. Some say this Isur is only on Erev Shabbos. That's one of the Rabbeinu, only Erev Shabbos, because they cool off when they leave Gehenna, not when they go back to Gehenna. They leave Gehenna, and it's good to be careful, according to this Shitta, even Erev Shabbos Bein Hashmashos, not to drink water from the river. What's the source for this? So that's the Tosfos in our Gemara, Pesachim Kuf Hei Amud Aleph. Tosfos says, drinking, Kufay Ben Al-Toyson says, drinking Shabbos and drinking. Mashma shayu oichlin b'Shabbos samach l'chashecha. They used to eat on Shabbos before dark. V'teimer shlei nagu lechel b'mincha l'maydiv. But you're not supposed to eat in mincha l'maydiv. V'gam Rabbeinu Tam kos al Rabbeinu Meshulam shenig lechel b'mincha l'maydiv. Rabbeinu Tam was angry on Rabbeinu Meshulam who said to eat between mincha l'maydiv Shabbos, because the Medrash says whoever drinks water on Shabbos Bein Hashmashos is stealing from his relatives who are the dead. And he says that there was a story in Luther. And somebody came to danger of drinking water.
Luther isn't. Where's Luther?
So this doesn't matter if you're in the middle. This is
even in the middle of a meal. Yeah.
He's talking about his brother.
He says somebody, and he says Erev Yom Kippur they allowed to eat after vidui after vidu, after the confession, b'shum, yeah.
But doesn't mean they give him
Lecha b'shum shikras, because they didn't want you should eat before mincha, because you might get drunk and you won't do vidu. So then they let it. And Tisha B'av on Shabbos, they let you after mincha because you shouldn't be hungry. You shouldn't be hungry. But stam, how could you allow people to drink water? Water mincha.
You should drink.
So Tosfos says that here they started to eat earlier, and in the middle of the meal they daven mincha, and where they started beheter, then you're allowed to complete. So that's what the Shulchan Aruch Harav brings here, that there's an inyan to do shalashudas before mincha, so you won't drink anything bein hashmashas. But he says even us who do, make sure you don't drink bein hashmashas from the river. Only water that you got earlier.
It's water, but what did he mention?
It's water that you get now from the river because the souls
but
are looking for this water.
What does the shikras relate to over here?
No, he says Erev Yom Kippur they allowed to eat after mincha. Usually they don't make a meal after mincha. Erev Yom Kippur they allowed it because they don't want to do before mincha because you might get drunk. Yeah.
That had nothing to do with the concept of taking
Right.
water.
That's what you mean, right? That's what you mean. It's a fascinating halacha. That to take water from the river, Erev Shabbos ben Hashmashas, is stealing from the dead. It's very interesting.
It's all the waters connected in the world. It's not just any river.
It says water from the river, yeah.
But how can you take in Shabbos water from the river? You ever see people? Our wells.
So water from the river
Our
would
wells
mean
are water from the river.
Water from the river would mean obviously in a Rishus Hayachid that you're allowed to take it. You're right. If it would be a Rishus Harabia.
About us. You get water from the wells. Water
Oh,
from the
you're
wells.
saying even from a well.
No, I thought this.
It has to be drawn before. So I guess you have to drink bottled water. If you got to drink bottled water.
So, does that have anything to do with the people say that the first
Very interesting, no?
first water that comes out?
This is Tur. This is Rabbeinu Tam, Tosfos, Rosh, Mordechai, Ramah, Medrash Shocher Toiv, Agos Maimonides. I mean, this is the Ramah, Reish Tzadik Aleph. Reish Tzadik Aleph, the halachas of Shalosh
You're going to
Shudas.
take away from the dead.
Goizel is Hamesim. Goizel is Hamesim.
You're going to steal.
You're stealing from the dead. And he says in Luther, there was a Maisa. Luther. Where's Luther?
Rabbi Akiva,
France, yeah?
when he brought
Martin Luther.
Rabbi Akiva,
Germany.
but in the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva mentioned it can cause diphtheria or something.
Fascinating halacha.
But Monsey Shabbos.
Now, but sorry, Shabbos, before they go to the Gehenna, they want a cold shower.
Yeah, no, I'm saying.
So they go into the cold, or Erev Shabbos when they come out of Gehenna.
That there's a bracha in the water that's first taken Monsey Shabbos.
Oh, Be'er Shel Miriam, yeah, that's another
But
thing.
that's a different.
That's the opposite, yeah. Fakir, then you do go to the river. Be'er Shel Miriam, right? That's what you mean.
Where is this halacha? The Shulchan Aruch?
What we just spoke, was Reish Tzadik Aleph, the
Reish Tzadik
halachas of Shalosh Shudas. Huh?
Bottled water.
When do you
Bottled water is the answer.
You're Yotze with Paris or Mazonis, you could be Yotze.
But if you're
Okay,
Chabad, we'll use the same.
Flacha, thank you for bringing it up, Gevaldik. Thank you for bringing it up.
Benching.
Rabbi Yaakov in Siman Reish Tzadik Tes, it says people have a minute to draw water Mitzvah Shabbos from rivers, from wells or cisterns, because the Chachamim said that Be'er Shel Miriam, which is in the Sea of Tazria, comes around Mitzvah Shabbos in all the well springs, and if you drink from it, it's healing from all sicknesses. So Mitzvah Shabbos we draw because maybe you'll find that water.
And the Tosfos that you learned was
No, the Tosfos is Kufay Amid Aleph, V'hana Mili the Achlu V'Shosu.
Shkoyek. Have a safe
Flacha.
trip. Go in peace and return in peace.
Amen, amen. When it comes to benching on a cup of wine, as I said, there's three shittas. If you look in Shulchan Aruch Harav, Chaim, Siman Kuf Pei Beis, right in the beginning, you have there all the Maramakamis, all the footnotes. But the Shulchan Aruch, in the laws of benching, Kuf Pei Beis, brings all the three opinions. The first opinion, again, that's the opinion that's brought here in Tosfos, in the name of Rabbeinu Yechiel of Paris, is that Birchas Hamazon needs a cup of wine even if you're benching on your own. And just like all other rabbinic mitzvahs that are an obligation, you have to go search for a cup of wine to the point that, according to this opinion, you should not eat if you don't have a cup of wine to bench on afterwards, right? Because you have to bench. If you want to eat bread, you have to bench. And if you want to bench, you have to have a cup of wine. So it's fascinating. According to this opinion, if you don't have a cup of wine and you're anticipating that you're going to get a cup of wine later, if your mamas don't have a cup of wine, then it's not a mitzvah to fast forever. But if you think you can get a cup of wine later, so then you're not allowed to eat because you won't be able to bench. Your mamash won't be able to bench. And even if that means, the Shulchan Aruch says, according to this opinion, even if that means that you have to skip a meal. You may have to skip a meal. One meal, you have to skip it because you don't have a cup of wine. You don't have to skip 2 meals. We're not going to make you starve because you don't have a cup of wine. But if you don't have a cup of wine and you're going to have, let's say, at the next meal a cup of wine, I'm not supposed to eat bread because I have to bench. And if I bench, I need a cup of wine. That's the first shitta. Now, according to this opinion, if 2 people are eating together, right? Not 3 people, if 2 people are eating together, every single person needs a kais for benching. When you have 3 people together, so then it's zimun, they're combined together. So then one person could be yoitze the other 2 with a cup of wine, just like he's moitzi them with benching itself. That's what zimun is. He can also be the moitzi with a cup of wine. But if it's 2 people eating, according to this opinion, they would both need individually a cup of wine. So that's the opinion that Tosfos brings here in Pesachim, right, that we learned here. Taf Kofei Amud Beis, in the name of the Rashbam, in the name of Rabbeinu Yechiel. It's the opinion of other Rishonim. It's the opinion of Rabbeinu Yoina. It's the opinion of the Rosh. Hagos Maimonides brings in the name of Reb Meir of Rottenburg. And other Mefarshim, the Tashbetz. I mean, there's great poskim who hold this opinion. Then there is a second opinion. The second opinion that's brought in Shulchan Aruch is actually the opinion of the Zohar. The opinion of the Zohar in a source called Medrash Hanelim Rus, and this is the second opinion in Shulchan Aruch, says you do not need Birchas Hamazon when you're benching, or you do not need a cup when you're benching on your own, only when you are benching with a mezuman, right? 3 people and certainly 10 people. Okay. Then there is the third opinion. The third opinion is the opinion of the Rith, here in Pesachim. The opinion of the Rambam, I mentioned before the Rambam's opinion, Ram Hilchas Brachas. It's the opinion of the Rashba, the opinion of the Ran. And it's the third view brought in Shulchan Aruch, that even with 3 or 10 people, there's no obligation to have a cup of wine for benching. It's a mitzvah min hamufchar. It's the best way to do it. It's a mitzvah min hamufchar, as the Ramah puts it here in Shulchan Aruch, in Kuf Pei Beis, and in Kuf Pei Beis. But a mitzvah min hamufchar means it's the choicest way, it's the best way to do the mitzvah. If you have a cup, but it's not an obligation. That means if you don't have a cup of wine, you don't have to go pursue a cup of wine like the first opinions. You could just bench without it. If you have, it's the right thing to do. Okay. Now that's the prominent minhag today, as the Shulchan Aruch Harav says. That is the prominent minhag today, according to the third opinion. And according to this view, when you're benching individually, you don't need a cup of wine, even as a mitzvah min hamufchar. And even if you have a cup of wine, according to this opinion, you do not need a cup of wine as an individual. There is another view that's brought in the Ramah, that when you're benching on your own, to keep a cup of wine on the table, not to hold it. The general minhag of the world is that when an individual benches, he does not use a cup of wine. And as the Shulchan Aruch Harav says, the Baal HaTanya says, Nochein minhag zeh al derech HaKabbalah. That actually, Kabbalistically, this is the proper minhag, not to do a kais when you're benching b'yechidus. This is based on the Zohar and based on the writings of the Arizal. The Be'er Heitev brings it. So that is how we do it, b'poil mamash. So these are the 3 opinions, and of course there's many ramifications. Now, in terms of halacha l'maisa when it comes to pogum, right, blemished. So that's the halacha that we learn here in this Gemara, that a kaishal bracha is not allowed to be pogum. It's not allowed to be blemished. That's the halacha. That means if I drink from it, I blemished it, and I cannot use it as a kaishal bracha. Now, here's an interesting thing. Even if I did not mamash drink it directly. In other words, I put my mouth into it. Even if I didn't do that, but I just pour it into my mouth, it has already a status of pogum. That's interesting. But if I take the cup and I pour it into my hand, or I pour it into a keli, another cup, and I drink from that, that's not an issue. That's not an issue. But you have to be concerned about something else. Even if you pour it into another keli, a little bit would be fine because you still need a full cup, right? Or even if you poured a lot out, but then you took the becher and you poured it into another small cup and it becomes full, that's good. Or you throw something in to lift up the wine, because you do need a kais male. You do need a kais male. You do need a full cup. So even if you pour it into another cup and it's not pogum, so if you pour a little, it's not a problem. But if you pour a lot and it's not a full cup, then you have an issue. But you don't need that the cup should be filled with a revius of wine. So that's why you could put something in and the wine is elevated. You just can't have a chaser, right? Now, as we learned here, even if you drink from a pitcher or you drink from a earthenware a barrel that is smaller, the whole wine gets blemished, and you cannot make a bracha on it. Yeah, we learned the Rashbam. The Rashbam says that if it's a big barrel, like a wooden big barrel, he says it's not a problem. But you do have to remember, the Shulchan Aruch Harav brings this in Siman Kuf Pei Beis. He brings the Shitta of Rabbeinu Yeruchim. I'm looking it up here. Yeah, the Shitta Rabbeinu Yeruchim, who says that even a big pitcher you have to be stringent with. That if you drink from it, the whole wine is pogum. And he says, V'yesh lachush l'divreim l'chatchila. You should at least initially be concerned, according to this shitta, not allow anybody to drink, even if it's a huge pitcher or huge barrel, because drinking from it, at least according to one shitta, would make it pogum. So at least l'chatchila, you should be concerned. Now we have to remember, if you do have a kais pogum, you don't have to throw out the wine, and you don't have to get new wine. You could fix it by adding a little bit wine into it, because the main problem of pogum is that you drank from it, and when you refill it, you replenish it, and you add a little wine, it's good, it's fixed. For example, we have a concept called begimas hamizbeach, right? The altar is blemished. That means a piece is missing. If you refill that piece, it's fine. So therefore, if you put back wine into it, you're good. It's not pogum anymore. By the way, if you take the cup, which is pogum, and you pour it back into the bottle, so it gets bottle beroiv, it gets nullified in the majority, and then again it becomes kosher. This is not lechatchila what you should do. You're not supposed to be a mavatal lechatchila, but if you do it, it is fine. The better thing to do is to take the bottle and to pour from the bottle into it, and to make it ice pogum, and then you could pour it back into the barrel. That's not a problem. But lechatchila, to pour it into the bottle to be at mavatal beroiv, you don't do it. The best is to replenish it with wine. Now again, as we said before, even a little bit water. If you put in water into the wine, you can fix it. Right? You don't have to have wine, but there is the condition. And that is, if the water is going to dilute the wine, it's going to ruin it to the point that it's not worthy of drinking, then it's not going to fix it. So yes, you could put in water, but the water has to be such that will work together with the wine. It's not going to ruin the taste of the wine. As long as you're not ruining it, you can add water. Another very interesting halacha when it comes to pogum. Let's say you want to add water into the wine, but the water itself has been blemished because somebody drank from the water. Then, right, if you're going to pour it into the wine, it's a problem. Because even if the wine is not pogum, by pouring the water into the wine, it makes it pogum because the water was pogum. That's a fascinating halacha that the Beis Yosef teaches, that if the water was pogum, you're not allowed, or you can't even pour it into the wine that's not pogum. So, what's the reason for this? So the Shulchan Aruch Harav explains, because the water will not get bottled in the wine with a majority, because it's nirgish. You can sense the taste of water in the wine, because you can't compare the taste of diluted wine to undiluted wine. So therefore the mayim is not going to get bottled in the wine, even if it's a minority and a majority. So that's why that mayim is not going to get nullified, and it's pogum. So therefore you cannot pour it back into the wine. But let's remember what the Rashbam said, and that's the halacha, the b'shas adchak, if you have no wine and no water to refill the kais, which is pogum, it's better to make a bracha on a blemished cup than to make birchas hamazon or another bracha without a cup at all. So it's always better to do it. Again, this is b'di'evet. So that's the basic halacha l'maisa of when it comes to kais pogum. Now, in terms of halacha l'maisa about benching and havdalah, Mitzay Shabbos, right? Mitzay Shabbos. So this is in Siman Reish Tzadik Tes, and the way the Shulchan Aruch Harav describes it is that if you were eating on Shabbos and the meal continued Mitzay Shabbos, and you're allowed to eat Mitzay Shabbos because you started to eat on Shabbos, like the Gemara said earlier, and now you want to bench, right? So if you hold, like the first shita, that a kais shel bracha, that a birchas hamazon needs a cup of wine when there's one person or a few people there, then you're allowed to drink the cup of wine after benching, even though you did not make havdalah yet, as we explained before. Why? Because this kais of birchas hamazon is part of the suda. It's part of the suda. If that is the halacha that you need a kais, or that is your minig, because the truth is that there was no clear halacha of these shittas. The Shulchan Aruch brings all these three shittas. So if you're always careful to do birchas hamazon with a cup of wine, then you could drink that cup of wine after benching, even before Ma'ariv and Havdalah. But if you sometimes do birchas hamazon without a cup of wine, relying on the shita that birchas hamazon does not need a cup of wine, if you're an individual, or even if it's 3 or 10 people, according to the third shita, then you're not allowed to drink the cup of benching before Havdalah. So when we finish Halashudas and we bench, and it's after Shabbos, if Shabbos is not over yet, of course, if you do Shalashudas early, it's not a problem. But if we're talking about if Shabbos ended already, I cannot drink the cup of wine before Havdalah. So now what happens now? So the way the Shulchan Aruch says the psak, the Shulchan Aruch of the Mechaber, quoted in Shulchan Aruch Harav as well, is whether you're drinking the cup of wine or you're not drinking the cup of wine, Havdalah should be on a second cup of wine if you have a second cup of wine. Why? As we explained, benching and Havdalah are two separate kedushas, two separate mitzvahs, and you do not bundle them together. You don't want mitzvahs should appear as a burden. Einos and mitzvahs, chavilas. So you do two separate cups of wine, one for benching and one for Havdalah. If you don't have wine for a second cup, then you do Havdalah on the same cup of wine on which you did benching. And here's important. When you finish Havdalah, you made B'eder Priyagafen, right? And you drink the Havdalah. Then you also drink the cup of benching. Why? Even if you hold that Birchas Hamazon doesn't need a kais of wine, but you did have a cup of wine for benching. Why? Because everybody holds it's a mitzvah min hamufchar. If you have 3 people or 10 people doing a mezumin, it's a mitzvah min hamufchar to bless on a cup of wine. So if you didn't use a cup of wine, but if you used a cup of wine, it's a mitzvah min hamufchar to also drink the cup of wine. But you can't drink the cup of wine before Havdalah. So after Havdalah, you drink the cup of wine from Havdalah, and then you drink the cup of wine of benching. Again, it's not an obligation. Just like you weren't obligated to use the cup. It's not an obligation. I know some people don't do it. It's not an obligation. But just like you used the cup of wine for benching, because it's a mitzvah min hamufchar, and you did not say hagafen. You asked before if you said hagafen. You did not say hagafen after benching, because you're not going to drink it. But after Ma'ariv, and by Havdalah you make hagafen, it's a mitzvah min hamufchar now to drink the wine, which is why you should make Havdalah as close to Birchas Hamazon as possible, so that you could drink the cup of Birchas Hamazon as close as possible to benching. And if you're using a second cup of wine, because you have 2 cups of wine, so you make Havdalah on the second cup, you make B'eder Priyagafen on the cup of Havdalah, you drink the cup of Havdalah, and then you drink also the cup of Birchas Hamazon. Again, this is mitzvah min hamufchar. This is how it's explained. This is how it's explained in Shulchan Aruch Harav and Siman Reish Tzadik Tes. And over there in the footnotes, he explains it. There's a whole Kuntres Achron about it. I just want to clarify again that the minig by many, including in the world of Chabad, is to daven Ma'ariv and then to make Havdalah on the same cup of Birchas Hamazon. That is the shita of the Rambam in Hilchos Shabbos Perek Chav Tes Halacha Yud Beis, That's Shitas Harambam, that you don't say Ein Oisin Mitzvahs Chavilas when it comes to benching on a cup of wine from the meal of Shabbos and making Havdalah. You could use the same cup of wine. We're not talking about benching on a meal of Matzai Shabbos. We're talking about benching on the meal of Shabbos, and that's the minig according to Shitas Harambam, that what? Even if you have more wine, the same cup that you use for benching, you use for Havdalah, and when you say Hagafen by Havdalah, of course, after Havdalah, you drink that cup of wine, and it's the cup of wine of benching and the cup of wine of Havdalah. But the way the Psak Din is in the Shulchan Aruch of the Mechaber in Siman Reish Tzadik Tes is that you use a second cup of wine for Havdalah. You do not use the same cup of wine for Havdalah, and it would be a mitzvah min hamufcher to drink both cups of wine, the cup of Havdalah, of course, and also, if possible, the cup of benching, and you do have the cup of wine of benching. That would be the mitzvah min hamufcher. It's not an obligation, because remember, we're following the shitos that the cup of benching is not an obligation, and if your minig is always to use a cup by benching, then that's the minig that you accept, and then you could drink it after benching, before Havdalah even. But if that's not the minig that you accepted, you're following the shitta that you don't need a cup, it's a mitzvah min hamufcher if you have 3 or 10 people, and according to some it's a mitzvah min hamufcher if you have one person, but according to the third shitta that we said, it's only a mitzvah min hamufcher with 3 and 10 people, and for one, it's not even a mitzvah min hamufcher.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.